Tim Hague Reads Books, presented by Tim Hague. Russell Hoban defies comparison with other writers. There's nobody else writing books like his. If his readership is select, he is nonetheless one of those writers whose new book we read as a matter of course. You never know what you're going to get, except that it will delight and tease and intrigue, and take you in unexpected directions. Tim visited Russell Hoban in his London home to talk about his typically elusive and compelling new novel, Angelica, Lost and Found, which embraces myth and poetry in an idiosyncratic version of present-day San Francisco, rooted in the most concrete details.
This is Tim Hague Reads Books, and today I'm talking to Russell Hoban, the author of a remarkable series of books. Or is it a series of remarkable books? I'm not quite sure, but they are completely of their own kind, and Russell Hoban is completely of his own kind. Russell, the new book is called Angelica, Lost and Found, and it's really hard to say what it is. It's not a murder mystery, it's not a love story, it's kind of love story, but it's mystical and it's mysterious, and it's rooted so much in the real world as well. What kind of book do you think it is?
Well, I think it's a very strange book, and I was surprised because back in 1997, I read Barbara Reynolds' wonderful verse translation of Orlando Furioso, and that got me interested in Ruggiero and Angelica. And on the cover of the Italian edition, there was a small reproduction of the painting by Girolamo da Carpi of the painting which now lives in the El Paso Museum of Art, showing Ruggiero rescuing Angelica. Strange painting because Angelica is the least element in it. She's all squeezed into one corner. You can barely see her. And the main thing is Ruggiero riding the hippogriff, coming to attack Orca, the sea monster.
Who is menacing Angelica.
Who is menacing naked Angelica chained to her rock.
Yeah, and she's always naked, isn't she?
That's part
there are
of her charm.
Lots of paintings of this.
Yes.
Let's go back a little bit to Orlando Furioso, because there will be some listeners who are not familiar with this, and I was one of them until I had to go and look it up, having come across it in the book. So is it 15th century epic poetry, Italian?
Yes, by Ariosto, Lodovico Ariosto.
And in its time, it was like a huge hit, wasn't it?
I think it was a bestseller in its time. A bestseller. Yeah.
So it's got monsters and it's got chivalry and it's got adventure and all of these things. But the particular bit that got you going was this passage with Angelica being menaced by the sea monster. I wanted to know, was it the poem or was it the picture that first drove you to the typewriter?
Well, my paperback copy of the translation has post-it stuck all over it and notes. So I was riveted by the story, and back in '97, I thought I would do something with the hippogriff, whom I call Volotore.
Volotore, which must mean something like "he who flies." Is it?
Yeah, the flyer.
Yeah. You called him that.
Yes, I did. I thought I might do something with him, and I had a go at it. And as often happens with me, it didn't go all the way. It fizzled out. I hit the wall, and I couldn't do any more with it. But then in, I guess it was 2 years ago, in 2008, I looked at it again, and I could see places to go. So I started writing, and the thing about it is that I wrote as ideas came to me, and it seemed nothing out of the way. It's my job to write down what comes to me. So I went on doing it. And one thing led to
You've jumped straight to my question 10, which is, how did you write it? Did you have a master plan? Did you plot it all out? Or are you one of those brilliant improvisers who just goes for it and sees where it takes him?
I fly by the seat of my pants, and I'm not always brilliant. Sometimes I get there, sometimes I don't. This time, as I say, one thing led to another, and I kept writing down what came to me. And as I said before, it didn't seem strange to me. That's my job. That's what I do. And I wrote, and eventually the book was finished. And only when I had the finished manuscript in my hands, no, even then it didn't seem strange. But then when I had the finished book in my hands, I thought, how did this happen? What's it all about?
So it was as mysterious to you as it is to us.
It is, absolutely.
Well, then, in that case, we'd better give a little bit of an idea of what happens. We start off with Volatori the Hippogriff, who is, even at the beginning of the book, he's a fictional character. And he is, I think, jealous of Ruggiero. He wants to rescue Angelica, and it becomes perfectly clear that his reasons for wanting to rescue her are not entirely selfless. He needs to find a way of turning himself into a part of reality so that he can go and find Angelica now, which he does. So that we move from the painting really to, well, all sorts of places, but principally San Francisco, where he goes looking for the Angelica of now.
Yes.
How he sets about that? Well, actually, there's a passage in the book. If you wouldn't mind, would you be happy to read for me a passage which is crucial to that process of him turning himself from a fictional character into a part of reality?
I may read a little haltingly because my eyes are failing, but I'll do my best. On the third day, when night came, I dreamed of blackness. Only that. I dreamed of blackness every night after that, and on the 8th night the blackness swooped and became the great raven. The great raven looked at me and blinked, showing me a clear bluish-white disk like a little round mirror in which I saw only blankness. "Where do you want to go?" he said, and his voice rebounded in massed echoes from the black escarpment. "To the beginning of the dream that is called reality," I whispered. "Why?" said the raven. "I want to go beyond time and space to rescue Angelica always." "There are heroes for that." To me speak only truth. I want her for myself." I was looking into the raven's left eye when I said that. Then the mirror flashed, and I was in the eye, looking out. Around me, the vast blackness of the bird opened and lifted, and the earth fell away below me. All the flimsy contrivances of humankind and the clamor of its voices blurring into dimness and distance as we rose above the gray sky and into the brilliant clarity of the blue dome in which the present curved endlessly upon itself to compass past and future.
Now, that's fairly heightened mythological language.
That's what I do.
Well, yes, of course you do, but you also, in fact, later on, when we're in San Francisco, your character starts saying things like, "Can we talk modern?" And they use idioms and phrases and slang that are very modern, because what you do then is you bring it from the mythological realm into a much more conventional. Well, conventional is the wrong word, isn't it? Because it's sort of Hoban land. It's not the world as necessarily as I experience it, but it's a recognisable one.
Well, my books are always somewhat off the beaten path and pretty strange, so I make sure that they are grounded in a solid reality with as much detail as it takes to make it solid.
You do that because you're planning to take us into realms that are going to be a bit confusing otherwise.
That's right.
So, as well as being about storytelling, which I think this book is, it's also about love and lust, isn't it? Angelica is beautiful, and the motivation of Volatore in finding her is at least as much sexual as romantic.
Definitely, yes.
And in fact, that's a big part of the outlook of this book, because there's quite a lot of sex. It's quite racy, Russ.
Mm-hmm. So it seems, yes. I don't say I'm going to write racy, but as the story goes on, a lot of sex comes into it.
And some of it's quite transgressive sex. There's some very interesting moments when Angelica first meets Volatore, the hippogriff. She's quite keen on getting sexual with him as a hippogriff rather than as a man, because he can be.
The bestiality rears its ugly head.
And bestiality. There are elements of rape. He's able to enter into other men and become them or use their bodies for his purposes, but sometimes that doesn't work out. There's a passage in which one of the men evacuates the hippogriff from his bowels, and then he takes his revenge by sodomizing it.
Yes.
There's an enormous amount of symbolism in all of this.
Is there?
Well, it seems to me there is. It seems to me that in your outlook there is. If I think back to what I think of the Hoban book, which for me is the Lion of Jachim Boaz and Boaz Jachim. I always think of it as the Lion book, because I know I'm going to make a mess of the title. I keep getting them in the wrong order though. But that seems to me an enormously symbolic book. I think it was your first adult novel. And
yes, it was.
And the lion of the title is extremely vivid. I mean, it's the thing I mostly take away after reading it years ago is the image of this lion.
The lion had its start in an art book that I bought in Westport, Connecticut, a book on Mesopotamian art, and there was a picture of the lion hunt relief from Ashurbanipal's North Temple in Nineveh. Now, the king in his chariot is hunting and killing lions, and the king and his colleagues, his assistants and so forth, they're all conventionalized figures. They have no individuality. They have curled beards and all the attributes, but they don't look like anybody special. But each lion is an individual portrait, an individual tragic portrait. And the main lion, the number one lion, who is, as the spears go into him, he is grasping the wheel of the king's chariot and biting it in his dying rage. And when I came to London, the first thing I did was get to the British Museum and look at that lion hunt relief. And,
which is remarkable. I've seen it. Yes,
blew me away, yeah.
Yeah, and extremely memorable. Let's get back to Angelica Lost and Found.
Yes.
Is it a coincidence that we've used her name again? You said that you'd started writing this book some time ago, and there was an earlier book called Angelica's Grotto, which uses her name. It doesn't have any special significance for you.
No, it was just happened to be the name that the mistress of this website used in her pornographic site.
That's right, and that was pretty racy as well. That one, I thought.
I seem to write racy books. I don't understand it.
Well, we say they're racy. The events are racy, but the language is always extremely decorous. There's never anything that you couldn't show to your mother in a Russell Hoban novel, or, unless she's paying attention and sees what's going on.
Yes, they never speak coarsely.
I have to say, I enjoyed that aspect of it. I also enjoyed the rolling narrative, because we meet a whole succession of men who are one way or another Volatore, and she knows who they are because they smell. What did you say? Mostly like a horse, I think. And so she knows when she's come across somebody who Volatore has taken the form of this man, because it smells mostly like a horse. You have a succession of Volatores. In one of his incarnations, Volatore asks another character, Doris, if she could love him as a hippogriff. And we should probably say a hippogriff is a mythical creature with it's part part griffin and part horse, obviously.
Yes, I wouldn't call him mythical because he doesn't appear in any myths.
But I hadn't thought of that. You're absolutely right. Doris, when he asks her if she could love him as a hippogriff, she turns him down, which seems reasonable to me.
Yes.
But Angelica wishes for it.
Well, Angelica is somewhat off the beaten track herself. She's beautiful, and she's intelligent, and she's imaginative, and she's vulnerable, and at the same time she has quite a sturdy self. She's not a defenseless woman. And there's something about the hippogriff. It takes her a while to get used to looking at him with this beaked face and these strange eyes. But it turns her on. What can I say?
And
different strokes for different folks.
Which is probably good news for most of us. So, there is another painting in the book, which is a painting of the tiny, tiny giants dancing.
Tiny, tiny dancing giants in the dim red caverns of sleep.
What's that for? What's that about? Because that's a thread that goes through the whole book, and the painting is an actual painting within the narrative, which keeps cropping up and has a life. Is a character in the book itself.
That idea came to me the first time in a short story that I wrote called "The Raven," and how I got to the tiny, tiny dancing giants in the dim red caverns of sleep, I don't know, but I'm very oxymoronic, so I like the fact of a tiny giant and dancing in the dim red caverns of sleep. I arrived at that through trying to think of how being came into being, and that's what I came up with.
So the painting, as it were, came to hand, and you fed it into the narrative and allowed it to take its own course within that. Let me ask you do you have a favourite book of yours? Is there one that you say, this is the one that I want to be remembered for? Or
I haven't ever singled one out that way. I think it might be one that won't be published until 2012. If I live that, well, it'll be published even if I don't live that long. But it's called Soon Child. And it will be classed as a young adult novel. And it involves the adventures of a character called 16-Faced John in his quest for the world songs that his unborn child requires in order to come out into the world.
Again, a narrative about becoming and about entering into reality. So, well, that was going to be another question. If it's not indelicate to say it, you're 85 now,
right? And
still at it, still making books.
Well, as I may have said before, I hit the ground doddering.
and this is just what you do.
It's just what I do. Sure, I'll do it until I drop.
Well, let's hope that you don't. Let's hope that we get to talk again when that book is published, and I'll come back and talk to you.
Yeah, I hope so.
Russell Hoban, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Let me say that Angelica Lost and Found is published by Bloomsbury. It's £12.99 and it's available right now.
That was Tim Haig Reads Books, presented by Tim Haig. Tim Haig Reads Books is a Green Shoot production. More details can be found at www.green-shoot.com, or Tim can be contacted on tim@green-shoot.com.